Churches everywhere are asking the same question. How do we engage in the digital world? At 88 Frames Media, we specialize in helping churches like yours engage the digital mission field. From crafting compelling videos and social media content to managing your online presence, we'll help you reach your community where they are, online. Because here's the thing, your mission hasn't changed, but the tools to reach it have. Let's connect your church to the digital mission field. Visit 88framesmedia.com to learn more.
Man, outside of your Batman rankings, no, I'm good.
Do you diametrically disagree with them?
I don't know about diametric. I would put Keaton below Bale and Affleck.
Wow.
Below Bale and Affleck.
Here's my only reasoning for that. I think Keaton is fine in what he's in, but quality of overall material.
Yeah.
When you put all of Batman's Affleck appearances out there, and you put all of Bale and Keaton's, if you've got Batman 1, Batman 2, and The Flash versus all of the Snyder content versus all of the Nolan verse,
he ain't wrong.
Keaton can't qualify. But it's whatever. It's whatever.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's our show.
I just like,
he ain't wrong.
I was just like, I saw that in the email. I'm like, can I do this podcast?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Sanctum Sanctorum podcast, where comics and Christ culture collide. I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm the other host, Joey.
And today we are joined by a very special guest, a man who needs no introduction, so allow me to introduce him. Hector Miray, founder and purveyor of Faith and Fandom, and a all-around geek godfather. Say hello to the interpeoples.
Kiss the ring, apparently, since I think that's the first one I've gotten the Godfather on. That's pretty nice.
Listen, I spit the facts where they may go.
Unless it involves ranking Batman.
I spit the facts where I believe they should go.
We're excited you're on, bro. Thank you so much for saying yes. If you're new to this show and you're joining us because you're a fan of Hector, thank you so much. On this show, we dive into good stuff, bad stuff, and spiritual stuff within comic book movies. Today, we're covering something great. But before we dive into that, Hector, I would love to hear a little bit about how you found yourself into this space, some of the platform that you have developed, and sort of what keeps you going within this space.
So Faith and Fandom is about 12 years old now, which is ridiculous. I think it's technically the longest thing I've continually done in my life at this point.
It's a teenager.
Yeah, it is. It's an awkward prepubescent, my body is going through changes type situation. I was going to cons for a couple of years. I think I went to 3 cons before I started Faith and Fandom, and I was going to this big con in Charlotte, North Carolina. And there's like 30,000 people there. And it's one of the geographically largest spaces to walk. And I would spend 3 whole days at this show and realized after the first year, I was like, there's nothing spiritually encouraging here. Not that there has to be, because it's not what people are there for. But like, as I made friends with the people there, like cosplayers and different stuff, I realized, there's a few people here that really actually love Jesus. There's just no place for you to talk about that. But then I was like, as I got to know people, I also found there's a lot of people who are searching, even if they don't know it's for Christ yet, but they're searching. And so I wanted to kind of make a platform where people who are already believers could be encouraged in that space, and for people who are curious to have an on-ramp. and or to at least have a positive reference to Jesus. And but I also knew that there were strict, at least from I don't know that I've ever seen this not be the case, but there were strict policies. You can't just like walk around and like
Proselytize
pass
and
out tracts, proselytize, and do stuff like that. I'm not a big tract fan to begin with, and too many like middle school mission trips and stuff that left me traumatized. And so I ended up, saying, you know what, I'm going to write a devotional that's geeky themed, and it was supposed to be a almost just like a one-time project of I'm going to write this little 90-page devotional. I'm going to take it to this one Comic-Con. I'm going to set up as an artist one time, and then I'm going to move on with the rest of my life. And it was supposed to literally be a summer project. So like I did a superhero Bible camp in Tennessee. They had asked me to come do a superhero Bible camp, so I took all the stuff I wrote for that, wrote like 8 additional or like 16 other chapters on top of that, and put it together and published it the following summer. Or I published it in January and took it as a book to the Comic-Con, and the response was just kind of overwhelming, like of how many people were encouraged by it and how many people actually connected with it. And I had 2 or 3 showrunners that one show asked me to come set up at their show.
wow.
I had a church in Myrtle Beach that met inside a Comic-Con, or met inside a comic book shop, that asked me to come do their church service, and to do a church service at that point in time, the longest running Comic-Con in Myrtle Beach.
Wow, that's so cool.
And it was all like in the first, and I was like, oh, okay. And then, just kind of kept going. And it's kind of grown from there. And it's like every year I say, okay, I'm quitting, and then like never do. And it's like a ongoing joke with my friends. They're like, weren't you supposed to stop at like book 2? And it's grown, and I'm on average now, I go to about 20 cons a year.
Wow.
And the church that I pastor now, when they hired me, I was already doing this, and the deal was, they said, we recognize this is a functioning ministry. We're not going to like hold that against you. So they said, you can have 5 Sundays off a year just to go to cons. That's, not going to be a problem. And so I try and hit as many like Saturday one day shows as I can. And in that process, I've done 10 Faith and Fandom books, and like a comic book, a kid's book, a few random Muggle devotionals, and a few like things like that. But it's like sometimes I get to do a church service on a Sunday morning at a con and have like 250 people at it.
That's awesome.
And it just like astonishes me, because like at GalaxyCon especially, which is one of the bigger shows I do, people pay $50 to get in the door for Sunday and then go to church. And it's usually, for whatever reason, Sunday morning is always like the worst time for being competition, because that's like always when William Shatner or David Tennant has a panel or something. And my friends are like, I'm really torn. I'm like, no, go see Shatner.
Totally.
And
But I mean, it's got to feel cool to some degree to be like, I'm in active competition with the Doctor and the Captain. I mean, that's not nothing.
no, it's not. It's pretty cool overall with that. And I think kind of a highlight was I got to be a guest at San Diego in 2019 for the books.
Nice.
And to do their church service, which at that point in time had ran for 40 years straight. And then the following year was COVID. So, I like got it in just in time. But yeah, that's kind of been the heart of it. And everything else has been evolved into different things, but with the same mission, from podcasts to like memes and merch and everything else. Has just always been, I want to help people who are geeks and believers to be able to be encouraged, and people who are curious to have like an on-ramp. And like we're every parent's favorite booth. And I get it, like, because like I'll have some moms like, I'm so worried my children's into the animes. What do I do?
The
I'll be
anime.
like, the animes, Listen, I've got a sticker that says you can love God in anime, and I get 2 responses. I'll get some kid that'll quote, "I've got the power of God and anime." Like they'll quote that to me, which is exactly what I would expect.
Yep.
Or I'll get some parent, they'll be like, "Can you though?" And I had a mom like argue with me for an hour and a half because of that sticker.
Wow.
And because she was convinced her kid could not like anime and love Jesus. And I'm like, well, let's talk about that. And then my favorite argument I've ever had with a parent was I don't do Christian events 90% of the time because it's not my target audience. And I stick out too much at a Christian event, you know, because literally the first real Christian event I did was like a Building 429 and New Song concert. And I'm like, I don't belong
That
here.
didn't exist.
And so I was there, and book one, because it was written in 2013 when Grand Theft Auto was new, part 5. It was written in 2013, and so there's a Grand Theft Auto 5 devotional in it. And this was when it was still kind of fresh and hadn't been reprinted 4 times. Some mom came up to me, "That game's got drugs and sex and violence, and well, how would you have a Bible study on that?" And I was like, "Let me ask you something, ma'am." And she had a 14-year-old son with her. It's like, "Did you buy that game for your 14-year-old son?" And she's like, "Yes." I was like, "All right, well, you bought him a game with drugs and sex and violence. Would you rather be able to use that opportunity to like have a conversation about what it means, you know, with some biblical content?" She's like, "Yeah." All right, oh, here you go.
Also, the Bible has drugs and sex and
Violence and in spades.
Violence.
And I mean one of the things I love about the Faith and Fandom books, and I have I'm looking at the bookshelf in front of me. I have 9 of the books sitting there, and you so graciously allowed me to be a guest writer and write one of the devotions on the TV show Lucifer when that was out. And I remember talking to him and being like, "Listen, I have this idea, but like, is this okay?" It was like, "Yeah, like there's somebody out there who, you know, can make that kind of spiritual connection and needs that." And I mean, the fandoms that you cover in all the books, you know, range from any TV show that has a solid fan base or movie or video game or anime is, you know, addressed in these books. And I think that it's something that's I so could have used like growing up more than, you know, we're all around the same age. And so growing up, you know, the Christian books we had were things like A Kiss Dating Goodbye. But if I had something like Faith and Fandom at the time, like that would have been such a more life affirming thing. So I think it's such a awesome thing to be able to do. And, you know, I love it. I'm a big fan.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we're excited, and thanks so much for joining the show, which today we are covering something interesting. There's 3 guests, one for each Spider-Man. Today we are covering
Right.
Spider-Man No Way Home. I got a plot synopsis that's going to knock your Spidey socks off.
All right, let's hear it.
Hector, just buckle in. I write the best plot synopsises, and I think Marvel should hire me. I basically go to make Chris laugh. That's my goal in life.
Sometimes it's genuine laughter. Other times it's feeling the way that you feel about our Batman rating.
Yeah, well, we all need Jesus to some level. I'm going to cue the foreboding music, which will be done in post. Here we go. Peter Parker's life is in shambles, and for once, it's not because of a bad life choice. That comes in Act 2. No, this time it's because Mysterio has outed Peter as Spider-Man, and now Peter can't go to school, Starbucks, or even the bathroom stall without being asked for an autograph or demanding justice for fake Gyllenhaal. Desperate for a cosmic reset button, Peter turns to Doctor Strange, the MCU's sorcerer not so supreme, and asks him to magic his problems away. One botched spell later, and suddenly every villain, who the audience has a vague recollection of, shows up, even crossing universes, eager to crash the party and settle old scores. As the multiverse cracks open like Gwen Stacy's head, Peter must face angry octopus-armed scientists, electricity-based bee villains, and a dollar store lizard straight out of PlayStation 3. With No Way Home and way too many bad guys, Peter has to figure out who he can trust, what kind of hero he really wants to be, and how to fix a problem he 100% created himself. In the only breath of fresh air Phase 4 has to offer, Spider-Man No Way Home. Dun, dun, dun.
That was dark.
That's what I was going for.
My sweet lord.
I wanted so bad something that cracked, and I'm like,
I mean,
well, an egg
Other than Gwen
cracked.
Stacy's
I
back.
mean, yeah, technically it would be her back or her neck, but yeah.
I was gonna go with the whole Bane Batman thing, totally different movie, and then it just dawned on me, and it was like, it's right there.
No, it was right there, especially as that's one of the most emotionally pivotal moments in this movie and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. It's great that you took it and made such joy out of it.
It was joyful to me.
Well, like we said, we're covering Spider-Man No Way Home, and it stars the three Spider-Men, Toby, Andrew, and Tom, and also has Willem Dafoe, Benedict Cumberbatch, Alfred Molina, Jamie Foxx, Marissa Tomei, directed by John Watts. And I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I love this movie, and I'm pretty sure it is my favorite MCU movie.
What? Your favorite MCU movie?
Yeah, I think it might be. It holds a very special place.
It's probably in my top 5.
Oh, it's definitely in my top 3, if not my
I'd
favorite.
say top 5. Yeah.
I haven't definitively ranked my MCU movies in a long time, and so it's been.
Well, there's much. There's so much to rank now. You know, it was so much easier when there was like 10 of them.
There hasn't been much that's come out since No Way Home that would come near No Way Home. So the ranking of that high doesn't change.
Yeah, that's true.
When my kids eventually watch all the MCU films, this is where we stop.
No, they're going to suffer through it. Mine are going to suffer through all of it.
Mine as well. It's like, listen, I had to do this as it was coming out. You have the benefit of being able to know that this is bad going in, but we're going to power through.
After the Eternals and Ant-Man, Quantum, whatever, my kids were like, can we stop doing these now?
No, we can't.
No, it's exactly like Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine. Until you're 90.
Until you're 90.
90.
There's a lot of good stuff in this movie. Hector, I'm going to hand it over to you. What's some of the good stuff that, as you saw it, as you watched it, as you can recall, what stands out as this is great about this film?
Charlie Cox returning as Daredevil in live action.
Yes.
I'm a good lawyer. That was great. And it always breaks my heart that his first time going into the theater, nobody clapped for his scene because he went in way late.
Oh, really?
Down the road. Like, I think he went like a week or two later. And so nobody cheered when he showed up, but everybody cheered for the other Spider-Man. He's like, oh, nobody cares. So Charlie Cox's return, you know, I don't, man, the other Peters popping out of the portals or appearing easily comes real close to Avengers
Oh,
Assemble.
yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like, if it's not neck and neck, it's right there.
Would you say them walking out or that shot of when they finally realize like how to work as a team and the three of them do that like moment of swinging together and then land boom, boom, boom on, you know, right as they're about to face the villains? That to me was that like goosebumpy.
I'm with you on that, but honestly, like just the initial like, oh, it's happening. I'm so excited. Like Andrew walking through the thing, like once he pulls off the mask, like I don't like that was the loudest I'd heard anything since Endgame. Now, and to add to the sweetness of that, we could all read the writing on the wall that all three of these guys were going to be in here. And heading into this, my kids had never seen Garfield's Spider-Man movies. Or Maguire's. Yeah.
Really?
And we just hadn't. And so
I'm surprised that wouldn't have been like appointment viewing before this.
we're still watching new stuff, man. And our pandemic time was spent watching Clone Wars and Avatar. So, but like, so the week leading up to it, we were watching those movies, and we were going. at that point in time, my wife had just gone through cancer treatment. And so her parents were taking all of us to Disney and Universal as like a celebratory, hey, we're done with cancer type thing.
Mm.
And so we watched all the Maguire movies leading up to it, but we watched the 2 Garfield movies in the Disney hotel like the night before.
Oh wow.
Um, so like literally there was no time between my kids watching Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies and seeing this. It was like the next day for them. And so seeing like that, because my daughter was still like walking around Universal mopey over Gwen Stacy. So it's like, so this was like, big for them. So honestly, the appearance moment hits more for me than a simple moment. But I definitely applauded a simple moment.
I think I stood in the theater when that happened.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think those are about definitely the big ones. Then I think having the Uncle Ben conversation with the 3 of them was definitely a highlight. And overall, I think one of my favorite things is that Tom Holland's Peter tried to redeem the bad guys instead of just beating them up, or like punishing them or killing them or sending them away or whatever. Like he's like, maybe we can fix it, and I appreciate that of him. Is good or misguided as it could have been, but I appreciate that from him. So I think those are some definite I mean, and then obviously Garfield saving MJ.
Oh,
Like,
that was such a full circle moment.
it's like in the are you okay? Are you okay? Like that.
Yeah,
That's
okay now.
for me. Those are like peak. That again. I feel like this movie had more end game moments than end game. Like,
That's a good point.
because Endgame had like the 2. It had the On Your Left and Avengers Assemble, and maybe, and also like with Cap picking up the hammer, like just in the cheering moments, because nobody cheered when Iron Man died. We all just kind of collectively collapsed. But like I feel like this had more cheering moments, and I guess people would call that fan service. But again, we're paying for it, so service us. You know,
I think it did.
I would like fries with that.
I think it did really well what Deadpool and Wolverine tried to do later, and I think they did good, but this was a smaller thing to try to pay off. You're trying to conclude the other 2 Spider-Man universes where people, had kind of like 2020 vision, going back and looking back on them with nostalgia, looking back on them with respect, despite some of the issues that were, part of those franchises. And I think this was done so much better than Deadpool and Wolverine did it, in terms of payoff and merging these worlds and making it almost, realistic.
Well, and I think that's I mean, again, just because you mentioned the Deadpool and Wolverine thing, like there were no like I not that there weren't emotional attachments, but I don't think anybody was emotionally attached to the characters that we got in Deadpool and Wolverine, like crossover wise, as they were to the 2 Spider-Men.
No, 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 definitely not the same kind of nostalgia. Blade might be the closest thing.
And maybe X-23 for some that really adhere to Logan, but for most of us, it's like, oh, that's cool. Not like my heart is bleeding. Like,
Yes, yes, I would agree 100%. Yeah.
You got any other good stuff, Chris?
Oh, I have plenty of other good stuff. First thing I love.
I took a lot of it. I'm sorry.
No, 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 no. I mean, you covered a lot of what I had in here. Specifically, Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina as Doc Ock and Green Goblin haven't lost a beat.
Fantastic.
They
Nope. Better even in some areas.
I was just gonna say, I think he is more Goblin in this movie than he is in the first one.
Yes,
Goblin specifically, he is terrifying. He is sneaky. He is cunning. He is on point.
As soon as he loses the Power Ranger mask, I think he fully embraces that character in a way that he couldn't, back in 2002.
And it's also really interesting. I was watching it today, and I'm like, he had one movie, but he is Goblin, right? Like, I know he shows up in 2 a little bit. He's definitely there in 3 as the ghost for Harry, but like, he was the first. He almost is like the career Joker to Spider-Man, as it is in the character, but also for him as the actor to that role. And he not only he doesn't miss a beat, but he took it to a whole new level. There's one scene. Sorry, Chris, since I asked you what your good is, and I'm just taking over.
No, go for it.
The best scene of the entire movie for me anyway is it's a scene that's so unique, it's so terrifying, and it's so brilliantly shot. It's when Peter is using the tingle to try to figure out what's wrong.
Oh, when they're all in the lab.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
the camera angle, it's how it's positioned, fixed on him, and he's trying to figure it out. And like the sound editing goes dark, and everything about it is so brilliant. And there's no other scene that compares to that within the MCU. I think it stands alone as one of my top 5 shot films or scenes within an MCU movie. Obviously, the elevator scene in Winter Soldier is its own thing. But that one in particular, and then how it sort of sets up the villainy of where Goblin goes. I mean, I'm getting chills now just thinking of it. Like, it's so well done.
And I was kind of taken by surprise when it was like when he shoots the web at him. It was like, oh, I didn't expect. I mean, I knew it was gonna happen, but I didn't expect it to happen so right there. Like
Well,
that
and
was
they divert your attention to it because there's one small scene. You know, I do video for a living, so I'm a little bit more conscious of this stuff. But there's one small scene that they give you as a diversion, which is everybody's sort of looking around. He's looking around. Doc Ock is asking questions. Electro's uncomfortable, and the camera pans past Goblin. And he sort of just looks away, but he doesn't really have a look on his face. But it's enough of a look to realize, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not suspicious. I'm not nervous. I wonder what Peter's going to find. It's very innocent.
Mhm.
It's a 3-second shot, and it's so smart. Anyway, I'll wax poetic about other stuff, but that was my only good thing that I wanted to be like, I'm going to preach for a second. The Goblin in this movie is excellent.
100%.
And which is one of the things I think they went the wrong route with trying to do a Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't mess with that.
Nope.
Like, there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to add to the quality of Defoe's Goblin. Leave it alone.
Well, especially now that you've had the original and now this newer version, any Green Goblin that they introduce in future installments is gonna be already starting, a step behind, just
Totally.
because of who they're following.
Well, it's I think very much the problem with doing a Joker story is Ledger kind of set this mark that even if it's a very unique thing, everybody's going to compare it to it. Now, Joaquin Phoenix did his thing, cool, but then I feel like he deflated his own story by doing Folie à Deux,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's not connected to any other heroes, it's going to be more easily forgotten, comparatively speaking. And it's just anytime you do something that someone has done so well, it's going to be hard, which also I think is a good thing that it actually shows that the 3 of these guys had their own unique, because I think we're ranking stuff later, but just whatever, just between the Spider-Men, they do a good job. Just saying.
They do.
Totally.
I also, speaking of the Spider-Man, I love the Spider-Man affirmation circle. Like that little encouragement. It's like, hey, you're amazing. Don't forget that. Enough with the negative self-talk. All that stuff. The stuff about, do the webs come out of anywhere else? All that stuff is great. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't. I grew up with only one sister, and I actually always did wonder what it would be like to have a brother. And so
Only
when he
child.
does that,
I
okay.
got 2 sisters.
So, that line of like, I always wanted brothers. So it's like, man, that's what a
And that wasn't like scripted or meant for the movie.
no, that was just Andrew talking to Toby and Tom, being like, we are kin
That's
now.
hilarious.
And it's those moments that they embody the characters so well
Mhm.
that like that when they're speaking as themselves, it actually comes across as the character. I love those moments. Like,
Yeah.
and knowing that that was just genuinely him being him was like, because he's a delightful human from everything I've seen.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, you're charming. I appreciate you.
Now, but now both of you guys, being pastors, uh, did you appreciate the little shout out of like, are you going into battle dressed as a cool youth pastor, or?
I've never laughed harder.
So because I was with my kids at the premiere, because we literally watched the earliest showing of it the day it came out possible. Because like the Thursday before, or what, like the Thursday afternoon, the first one it showed at Universal we went to, and I had my phone on silent. I get out, walk into the Universal Studios lobby, turn my phone on, and I have, no kidding, at least 42 texts about, oh my gosh, you gotta see Spider-Man. There's a youth pastor line. And I literally sat in the parking lot of Universal and made a cool youth pastor sticker. And
That's good.
and had it ready at the next Comic-Con. And for like the first year and a half after that, people were like, oh, it's the cool, like they love it.
That's awesome.
But no, I did. And the fact is, like, it wasn't like a spiritual dig or anything, but it was definitely this is a cultural recognition
Yes.
of, you are absolutely dressed like a cool youth
And it's
pastor.
one of
And I
those,
was
yeah,
like,
you're right. It wasn't a dig at anything, but it was, if you know, you know. Like,
you're dressed like you like to talk to tomatoes. I got it.
yes.
Um,
Oh, yes.
and but no, I did love that line, and I appreciated that greatly. Was like, thank you for you just throwing us a nice little nod.
The last two things that I think I want to highlight is quickly love the costume at the end, that like real rich bright blue, the one that he makes himself, and that bright red. It just is the first time that I feel like in any of the movies that a Spider-Man costume looked like it jumped right off of the page and was just so colorful. The primary colors were there. All comic book movies love making, their costumes always look a little dingier, look a little more rugged, and this was just like a kid drew that and it was perfect. And since we talked about some of the other guys, J.K. Simmons, there's no other JJ
There's only one.
possible. Once now, so I'm so glad they brought him in, and he was just as good as he was 20 years ago. It was perfect. But that's it for my good stuff that I really wanted to highlight.
I've only got one more thing, and I only caught it this time. When Flash is like trying to sell his book, it's called Flashpoint. It's like, this is Marvel's Flashpoint.
Oh,
Like, haha, I see you. That was it.
that was it.
Otherwise, yeah, I have no other good things about this movie.
We took all the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you literally. I've got a lot of others, which we could get to. Yeah, I'll kick off others because there's some stuff that I'd love your commentary on. I wish this wasn't an attempt at a Sinister Six movie, because it sort of was, and they didn't really commit to it. But the reason I wish they either did it like full on and called it Sinister Six, or didn't do it, is because you end up wasting two of the villains. Like Sandman and Lizard are a complete waste, because this movie is literally about Doc Ock, Goblin, and sort of Electro.
Well, they
But-
definitely have the most development, certainly.
Yeah, and then, Goblin really becomes Holland's villain after killing May, but his main villain is the mess that Mysterio gave him. So, like, you just sort of have all these villains here. But
I meant Thomas Hayden Church wasn't even on set.
Yeah, well, he wasn't on set, and a lot of the Lizard stuff was B-roll that they didn't use. So, like, he gets a paycheck, but he didn't actually have to do anything. So I wish that, of this full-on multiverse of all these different people who know Peter Parker's Spider-Man. We got the 5 from the franchises we already saw. Like, you could have brought in Craven, you could have brought in Chameleon, you could have brought in anybody, but the people you brought in, you really didn't develop because, and I get it, we wanted to see Goblin. Like, I remember when the trailer dropped and you heard that laugh and it was like, oh, I know what they're doing. But they sort of didn't commit to it. So it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just sort of a thing.
I don't think they were allowed to.
Oh, well, that changes everything. Right. Rights.
They weren't allowed to pick any new Sony villain because Sony still has all the rights to have first dibs on what's going to go in the properties.
Stupid little divorced ownership thing.
So they could really only make the deal for the characters that had come before, and they made, I think, a special arrangement for the Venom appearance. That, to me, though, that was a big waste.
That was a huge waste. The only positive to the Venom appearance was getting Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso to be the bartender. I was like, you put Ted Lasso in the MCU. I'm happy now. So
the only other thing that I have is I wish there was a Harry in the MCU. I know Ned sort of fills the role, but it would have been cool if there was a Harry that sort of came in, sort of like this one character the entire time. Like, you know, Peter doesn't really, like, Holland doesn't really know who he is. Again, Marvel, hire me. Peter doesn't really know who he is, but he definitely knows Peter. And the entire time, it's like, well, he's helping him out. He's sort of there to assist him. Anything he needs, he's sort of there as an emotional support when May dies. And then at the end of the movie, he's like, hey, I didn't get your name. Oh, it's Harry. That would have been a great setup. But there is none of that. And then we got Ned doing whatever.
It'd be a weird time to be learning somebody's name, though.
It could be, but we sort of knew that episodes. Oh, well, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Like, hey, I'm here for you while your aunt died, but I'm going to remain anonymous.
Meanwhile, I've got a girlfriend and a best friend and a mentor, and I could be turning to them through all this hardship. But no, this strange dude who doesn't even
look
tell
like
me his
a compelling
name.
stranger.
You have youth pastor vibes. I like you. That was the only other stuff where I didn't really know if it was good or bad. It was just sort of like, I don't know what to do with this.
Otherwise, I really just had. Well, I had one thing that I know that Joey is not gonna like, but this is a Christmas movie.
No, it's not.
Christmas happens at the end of this movie, and for me, this is now going to be a holiday watch every year.
Here's a question, Hector. What defines a Christmas movie?
I'll just say if the time period it takes place is Christmas, if Christmas is mentioned, or like Christmas music or anything is used.
None of that happens here, Chris.
There's a Christmas tree.
You see a Christmas tree, but based on what you just said, there's no music. This doesn't happen at Christmas.
Excuse me. Yes, there is music.
The
when
ending
he's fighting Doctor Strange, he swings through the inside of a department store, and it's playing It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year past a giant Christmas tree.
Pew pew. Now, and to say this was the same time period that Hawkeye had the Rockefeller Center battle. So this must have taken place just before. Because what I would really have loved, and I know it would have been a lot to swing for them to do. What I would have loved is that when you see Peter at the end swing by, that the Hawkeye battle was happening on Rockefeller Center.
Oh, that would have been cool.
And he was like just not even getting involved in it.
Right.
Just
like for some reason you see somebody down there with a bow and arrow and you're like, I wonder what that is. And then when you watched the series, you're like, oh, that's happening right as he's swinging by.
Or if nothing else, to have Rogers the musical.
Oh, like, big poster for that. Yeah. That would have been fun. What do you guys think of the obviously fan theory? Because when this movie came out, the MCU wasn't even a thought in someone's brain, of this movie retroactively being the reason for the like quick turnaround for Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2, when like he's super evil and then you see this like glaze go over in his eyes and all of a sudden he's like, no, you're right, we need to destroy the machine, we're better than that, we're better than this.
I've never heard that, but that's complete garbage.
Because it's the idea that like he went to this universe and he was sent back right before his death, and that's why, because he became a good became a good guy over here, and that's why all of a sudden he knew the sacrifice.
It's a deep dive for sure, but
I've got a reason why that doesn't make sense, but we'll save it for bad.
All right, well, why don't we take a quick break, folks, and we're going to have a word from our sponsor. So we'll see you in a minute.
Ever feel like magic is just for the chosen few? Think again. With Sorcery for Slackers, if you've got hands, you can cast spells. No ancient relics? No problem. Our patented Mystic Mittens let you summon portals faster than you can say, oops. From teens to grandmas, everyone's getting in on the magical mayhem. Why study for years when you can master the mystic arts during a commercial break? Order now and get a free set of Mystic Mittens with 4 easy payments at a sinister price of $6.99. Who needs discipline when you've got Sorcery for Slackers? Call 1-800-MAGIC now. That's 1-800-624-4266. Unleash your inner sorcerer responsibly. Disclaimer: Sorcery for Slackers is not responsible for unintended time loops, interdimensional visitors, or spontaneous transformations. Use magic at your own risk.
And once again, not a real product.
kind of getting excited there. I was like, oh, hold on, should I write this number down?
Ooh, magic. Magic mittens.
Now listen, sir, why you got to be hating on my man Ned?
Hey.
He's got magic
No.
in his Filipino blood.
No, he doesn't. And since we're kicking off bad, I've got a whole section on this movie, and it's all Doctor Strange. This version, yeah, I mean this version of this movie doesn't work with him, and it doesn't work without him, and it's, pardon the pun, it's strange. We talked about this in Infinity War, but he is a device. He is used to move the plot along ever since his movie. I don't think Marvel knows what to do with him. They can't develop him. And he's used just to advance a story in a way that doesn't allow you to connect to him.
Multiverse of Madness was just a WandaVision sequel. So, yeah.
That's it. And so when he does show up in like Multiverse, it falls flat. Whereas, and I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, does this work anywhere? Well, yeah, it does. It works with Thor. Right? Like, he has his own franchise, but when he arrives in Infinity War, when he shows up in Endgame, enough is established and he adds to the overall story. But Strange just doesn't work. He seems to know everything about the multiverse and nothing at the same time. And I'm sorry, but back to what you just said. If Ned can do the little thing, then Strange is a dum-dum. The spell is dumb, too. Like, why didn't you talk through the spell?
Okay, that's my biggest
I was like, the fact that this
problem
whole plot point
is-
resonates because someone chit-chatted during a spell and he got distracted. Like, you couldn't have planned this junk out. Like, you couldn't Eye of Agamotto it didn't reverse this junk. Like,
Sworn to protect it.
But also, like, Peter is the kid in this situation. You're the adult. Like, and you were a surgeon. You were a doctor. You should know going into a delicate procedure that not only do you have a plan, but you need to say, listen, this is a delicate procedure. We can't have any distractions. Is there anything we need to fix about this spell before we move forward?
or kick him out of the room while it happened.
Sure.
I mean, he's zoomed, he's portaled people away before. He did that with Loki in what was it, Thor Ragnarok, when he like moves the portal at him. Like, why didn't you just get rid of him and do the spell, and then he could have figured it out on his own?
He does that in this movie. When Goblin shows up, he portals him right back into the Sanctum.
Silence his mouth closed. Like, do something. It was irresponsible writing. Like, I get you needed to get to this plot point, but you did not arrive there with logic.
Yeah. No, and that bothered me.
And I'll give this to Marvel, right? Although the Strange stuff doesn't really work here, I'm going to give them a small pass because if I remember correctly, this movie wasn't supposed to come out until after Multiverse of Madness. The original release date had this afterwards. And so, with the chaos of COVID and all of that, they shuffled things around. But like his awareness, like this movie is the onset of the multiverse. And it doesn't really make sense from a Multiverse of Madness standpoint because it's like, well, how do you know all this stuff? But then you go to Multiverse of Madness and it's like, well, I sort of know about it, but I don't really know about it. And so this just, he doesn't work here other than, okay, we need an OMG science thing. We need a MacGuffin here. And once again, Strange is just used to do it.
Well, I feel that way about the spell at the end too that they used to fix everything. The logistics of nobody remembering that Peter Parker exists is ridiculous. Like thinking just logistically about, like, so does he not have a social
Elementary
security
school,
number?
middle school, box dental
Is
records,
this also in the future? Like, anybody who meets him in the future is not going to remember him? Like, how does this
51st spider
spell
dates.
cast? And is this nobody in any universe? Because they had the gumption to tie Across the Spider-Verse into the MCU by putting Childish Gambino in it as the Prowler,
Yeah.
but he knew who Peter Parker was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
why wasn't the spell just make everyone forget Mysterio? Like, that solves your problem.
right,
Here.
why was it just have everyone forget Mysterio? That's a good point.
Justice for
But also,
Mysterio.
none of their identities are secret. So why does it even matter?
Because he's the kid. I actually thought about that. I was like, well, what does it matter? Nobody really cares about secret identities.
He's not a minor anymore.
Well, not anymore.
So yeah, I mean, does it really make a difference? Is there any other hero whose identity is not
When
known?
literally that was a major plot point of Civil War, the comic, was that Parker went public and Aunt May got shot.
Yeah.
Let the ramifications lie. You don't have to mop it up.
So that was, yeah, that whole thing. In I know they needed all this stuff to make this idea happen, and I wanted this idea, but it was lazy writing and kind of cheap writing.
Yeah. Another thing. So the villains give their franchise recap, right? Up until the moment that they die. Or like they all hate or are at least angry or annoyed with Spider-Man, right? But like this completely negates the fact that all of them had a redemptive arc right before they died. So I know your theory is like, well, they went to the multiverse and then came back and that's why they twisted. Osborn didn't have that, and right before he goes, "Don't tell Harry." I know, like, he's dealing with that, but like Electro, before he dies, he has a moment. They've all got a moment where they're like, "Oh, that's right. I should probably sacrifice myself, or at least I'm going to die knowing that Peter was right." And then they all get sucked here, and it's like, he's got to go. Really? I ain't wrong.
I don't know that I agree that they all had redemptive moments. I would say the only one who had a real redemptive moment is Doc Ock.
Don't tell Harry is shame. That's not redemption.
Ooh.
And it's legacy protection.
Go ahead, Pastor. Just for a second. No, now you got me. That's good.
That's like I don't want my boy to know how much of a demon I am. Not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can get. I understand what you're trying to say, but I don't know that I could get behind your reasoning for it.
Well, okay, so I'll concede that maybe it's not a strong point, but to that point, why is the multiverse a time traveler, but right up until the moment that they died? But like for Andrew and Toby, they go on and have families and lives. Andrew lives this life of bitterness and regret and all, like, their lives keep going. But the moment that the villains show up is right before they kick it.
Right. So why are they plucked from different timelines of their story? No, that's a little weird.
Because I think the thing would be that if the spell was anybody who remembered Peter Parker as Spider-Man, it brought them to the most recent moment that they would have been remembering Peter Parker as Spider-Man.
Oh, that's true.
Because if the most recent moment was the moment before they died, that's when they'd show up. Because and keep in mind, it wasn't that spell that brought the Peters there. It was Ned whirligigging that said, bring Spider-Man.
Right.
So two
Oh, that's
totally
true.
different spells, no relative. So the fact that all the villains show up from the Death Point tracks, because that's where they all come up from the one Doctor Strange spell.
Okay.
But the Peters come from
The
Ned's
Peters come
spell.
from Ned's
Okay.
spell,
Which is stupid.
which
All
is
right.
Which is
I mean, yes,
I don't get it.
but it clears it up a little
Oh
bit.
yeah, no, that clarifies it for sure. I still think it's dumb. I'm gonna nitpick on this one for a second. I don't like how the great power line isn't exact. It's with great power comes great responsibility in the Toby verse. In the Andrew verse, with great power comes great responsibility. In here, it's with great power. There must also come great responsibility. It's like you had one job, just keep it consistent.
I think that's comic accurate though.
Hers,
There must also come. Yeah, I think that is comic accurate.
everything I say, Hector.
Hold
Everything
on.
I say. You're never coming back on the show, man. I thought it was the other way around.
Even if it's not comic accurate, I think that
Again, it's a variation.
Well, I think it gets a pass only because it's not Uncle Ben saying it.
True.
Because it's Aunt May saying it, I think that you can give it a pass.
Well, you can give it a pass.
I can personally give it a pass, and I have no problem with that.
The last bad thing I have, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I think Maguire should have died.
Mm.
I think there was some emotion. I definitely cried when May passed. It was wrong. It was the catalyst moment that he needed. But it's just so screaming that he's coming back for Secret Wars.
Yes.
I think they
Yes, and we want it.
We do, but there's no rules in the multiverse. He could have showed up from whenever.
And
It's a different variant. It's a different opportunity. All of this, but like to close the stakes of why he needed to try to kill Goblin, but not do it and then heal him. It wasn't enough to just stab Toby. He needed to die.
I think we needed him not to die. I understand the plot point of him needing to die. I don't think we collectively as a world needed to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man die.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't think at that point in what was happening in the United States, what was happening in the world, I don't think we could have handled Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
You already killed
dying.
Iron Man. You did all this stuff. Stop.
And then you killed May. We're barely hanging on.
I want to rewind back to the great power thing. I checked it.
Yeah.
It is comic accurate. There must also come great responsibility. Now, and here's my caveat. The other two weren't MCU.
So they pulled we're going to be accurate.
We're going to be
move.
comic accurate and actually give you what was written.
Oh, so that's a sort of
Like forget you.
a little FU towards Sony.
Yeah.
I like that. You know what? I take it back. I like it better now. All right, I'm done. No more bad stuff since all my bad stuff actually got turned into good stuff.
I feel like they played a little too heavy into Jamie Foxx, let him. We're gonna make up to you for the whole blue thing and screwing you over the first time, so we're just gonna let you run rampant and just have fun with this. And I was like, I think my biggest hate is how they used Sandman and Lizard. That they were barely characters, that they were NPCs off to the side. And when I saw that his footage was literally the same footage from Spider-Man 3 Rewound, like his disintegration footage is his creation footage in reverse with some extra graphics.
That's lazy.
That's incredibly lazy. Like, and for Thomas Hayden Church to be publicly out there advertising, he's like, yeah, I never went there. I never did anything. I'm like, that's just disappointing, guys. Like at all. Put some, and he's not that high. I know his body shape is not matching to how he looked in that point in time, but bro, come to set something.
Yeah, but they have they have all that de-aging stuff. They have so much more technology than they did when Spider-Man 3 came out that they could have made some modifications.
I'm going to say
or
that
whatever.
out of everybody in the entire franchise, nobody has aged worse than Thomas Hayden Church out of the Spider-Man people. Like, so, and
No,
that's not
Let's rank this.
yes, let's rank body shaming Spider-Man villains. I'm just saying that's not a negative towards him. He's just gotten older and metabolized different because, like,
Sure.
he was old when he did it in the first place.
he was already an older dude when
Yeah,
he
but
did the movie.
I'm gonna look it up right now. How old is Defoe?
No, oh yeah,
Well,
William
Defoe's a
Dafoe. He's got to be in
skeleton.
his.
Don't you say William? It's not William.
I said Willem.
You better have. Otherwise, he'll get you in your Dracula sleep. You watch out.
He'll get me.
Defoe's not aged like since Boondock Saints. I don't know what, like,
That's true. He's 69, and he was doing all those stunts.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he
Like,
said that
bro.
that was the only way he would do it is if he got to do some of the stunts. So
Good for you. We like you, William.
that's the multiverse variant.
Right? William Defoe.
Like,
William Dafoe. He's a high-powered accountant.
It's actually
in
William
some
the
variant.
Foe. He's a rapper in another universe.
William Dafoe, the rapper. I love that.
Dofo.
I'm gonna stop now.
All I want to do now is hear Willem Dafoe say mustard really loud. Mustard.
Yep, there it is.
I would have loved if he combined this Green Goblin with all of his other roles, like, what he did in Boondock Saints or Antichrist or any of that other stuff where he plays these super bizarre characters. The Lighthouse.
No, I was gonna say the Lighthouse.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Pull all that stuff into this wacky Green Goblin. Hector, any other bad stuff? Otherwise, I got maybe two things that weren't mentioned.
I don't think I ever loved Ned.
Yeah.
Like from any of the previous movies either?
No. Like, I don't think there was nothing about him that ever felt less than a characterization. Like, there was no point I looked at him and thought, you're a real person. Like, maybe outside of the Legos dropping. Like, that's...
I do like that. I do like that scene though.
Yeah. That's like, past that, that's like, I don't know, he never really clicked for me. But
I felt that way about MJ in the first two movies, but I really liked her much more in this one.
yes.
Yeah, she showed up in this movie.
Because for a while I was definitely harping on the idea that, like, you're calling her MJ, but this is not Mary Jane Watson. So I don't know why we're calling her MJ, and I didn't like that change. But this movie, I was like, oh, she's super cool. She takes like that idea of, manic pixie dream girl and kind of amps it up a little bit to where it's not annoying and is kind of badass and cool, and I like that. So
I think she completely nullifies the manic pixie dream girl in this film, just because she actually has her own character development and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, this is more of a question that you guys can definitely answer. Do we feel like, maybe I'm alone here, but do we feel like Peter is too smart?
Which Peter?
Like Peter Prime, Peter One. Tom Holland's
Too
Peter.
smart for what? Like where they're in the lab and he's figuring everything out?
I mean, he geniused all of these cures for these crazy, superpower giving.
Not with three of them.
Yeah. Well, not only that, not with three of them, but there's a reason that he got on Tony's radar. But two, correct me where I'm wrong, Hector, comic accurate wise, he's pretty smart. We just don't see it in this trilogy.
No, he is. I just feel like, I don't know. This was he did a cure. He did a cure for Green Goblin. He did a sort of cure for Electro, and he did a cure for Doc Ock. And he was what?
Maguire was already working on the cure for Goblin,
which I thought was
That's in
stupid.
there.
It's like he died. Why were you working on it for a bunch of years? But yes, he goes out of his way.
He worked on it for years after.
Yeah, he goes out of his way to say, I've been thinking about this for a couple of years.
Right, but before the other Spider-Men show up, he was working on something because May grabs it and tries to stab Green Goblin with it, with the serum or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was...
Oh, you're talking before the lab. You're talking when they're all getting cured, like in Happy's apartment.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no, that's fine. because it gave me my favorite scene. I don't care.
I don't know. He just feels like he's a little too smart. And also, this could be the Green Goblin's serum, I guess, but I just felt like Norman Osborn's face shouldn't have been able to take all that beating. Like, it's one thing if he was wearing the helmet, but, you know,
I'll I'll
Spider-Man's...
I'll subscribe to that. Well, I mean, with the Green Goblin serum though, that's basically like having super soldier serum.
Yep.
I guess, but still, like, he didn't have any signs of being bruised or battered, and at least, you know, Steve Rogers would sometimes have some signs of, like, he took a hit, you know?
Apparently, he can do this all day too.
Listen, Marvel's not trying to get elder abuse, so
No.
No, they're already let him do his own stunts. They're not going to risk letting him get bloodied up as well.
We did that in Captain Marvel when she punched that old lady. We can't do it again.
Oh, one of my favorite scenes in that movie. I just love it so much.
What else you got? Anything else?
I got nothing else bad.
I felt like the end spell was weak. Like,
Yeah. Oh no, that was a. Oh, we gotta
Yeah,
wrap this
yeah,
up.
yeah. We kind of covered that with the other spell. Just the logistics of it were like doesn't really make sense in the long term.
And then people are like, "Oh, did you see the character that was foreshadowed within the blur of the purple hate?" No.
Oh, I
No.
know. Yeah, Craven, a doppelganger, and Madam Web, and
That's just bad CG. No, you didn't see anybody.
do you guys like that he didn't say anything to Ned and MJ at the end there?
yeah, because
Like, do you think he should have, or do you think he did the right thing, or?
I think he did the right thing for, moderately speaking, for the development of the story. He needed to not say anything.
Yeah.
Now, give him 6 months into college, and he's probably going to be like, "Hey, we need to have a talk."
I didn't realize how hard this whole I'm all alone thing and nobody's literally ever heard of me is going to be. Also, I need some help because I have no social security number. I have no credit history. I have no birth certificate, you know.
Well, he'll probably go. If he doesn't go back to Strange, I think he'll go back to Wong
Mm.
That could be fun.
and say, "Hey, listen, I know you don't know me, but and whatever." And who's to say that Steven's spell even affects Wong
Sure.
as Sorcerer Supreme?
It doesn't affect Thor. Did you see that theory?
Yeah, that it doesn't affect anybody who's off world. It
Right.
doesn't affect any of them. So,
So Peter
So who knows?
Quill would still know that he's.
Kevin Bacon.
yeah, I mean, he would probably remember him. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like they were like best buds, but I think any of the Guardians, Thor, anybody who left the planet after Endgame would still probably know who he is.
Yeah.
Maybe Wanda's spell, protected her in Westview.
She did though.
Is she?
For
Is
for
she?
purposes, yes.
For right now, she is.
For contract negotiations.
Yeah. Speaking of purposes, let's talk about some spiritual content. There's some really good stuff in here. Hector, why don't you go first? What'd you catch as far as
Hold on.
spiritual themes? What do you mean,
Okay.
hold on?
Hold on.
How dare
Do we
you?
really want Hector to go first?
Yes,
He's
we do.
written 9 books taking geek stuff and how it connects to Jesus.
Yeah, we want him
Oh,
to
if
go
I want to
first.
follow that kind of set list,
Then I'm just going to go, yeah, me too.
that was good. That's way better than what I have.
My big thing was, how we treat the people that are our enemies and loving our enemies, and what does loving our enemies practically look like now? Because it looks like trying to heal them versus destroy them. And I think that was the biggest thing I took away from that is like when somebody stands on opposite sides of you, are you trying to win a battle over them, or are you trying to win them over? Are you trying to fight for them or fight against them? And so kind of like did kind of a, in my mind, it was just kind of like a balance of how, whether it was even super practical for him to be able to functionally like solve all their problems or heal them, that was his mindset where, realistically, if you look at, Strange's perspective on what to do with the bad guys, that's like, there's a lot of church culture that's like, screw 'em. They're the bad guys. They're the enemy. They're the other side of the fence. They're whatever. And Peter's like,
and
no,
not our problem.
and not our problem. And then Peter's like, we need to actually fight for these guys. Even and the fact that even after killing May, he still wasn't ready to let him go down that route. So that, and honestly, the and I know it's an overused verse, even especially by me, but like the Ephesians or Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 thing of like, if one falls down alone, how will he get back up? But a strand of three chords, like that whole situation of like how much better they were together. Because listen, I would rather watch a movie with all three of them than a single one of them any given day. Because I like the other ones. I like all of them sort of individually, but I like them much better together. So that's mine.
Me too. Me too. That was exactly what I had.
Peter, number 2, what do you got?
For me, a big line that stood out is when Goblin has MCU Spider-Man on the ground and tells him that his morality is his weakness, and that kind of going on the side of like, do we love our enemies or do we fight against them? And morality is kind of the backbone of ethical behavior. It's kind of the backbone of love. And for us as believers, our morality and our moral compass kind of comes from how God calls us to treat those who persecute us, treat those who we love, and treat those who call us enemy. So if we're called to love and we see how easy it can be to take vengeance, how easy it can be to live a life of greed, or live a life of self absorption. If God is calling us to love, morality needs to be the framework for our actions. And if our actions are done in love, that's what needs to be the basis for us. And so I've never viewed morality as a weakness. I've always viewed morality as something that we're called to, and something that needs to be the foundation of how we love others, and especially how we love the people that want to do us harm.
I love it. Mine was not those. So right at the end, Doc Ock sees McGuire and he goes, "How are you?" And he responds and he says, "Trying to do better." And I love that line because he is aware that he is a work in progress. He is constantly growing. He's constantly maturing. He's constantly developing. And honestly, that's the Christian walk. That's following Jesus. Philippians 3 comes up, verses 12-14. But just 12, it says, "Not that I've already obtained this or I've already been made perfect, but I press on and I take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold for me." I love that because, this super saint who wrote half of the New Testament, or at least a good part of it, started persecuting the church, thinking he was doing the right thing. And then he spends the rest of his life just saying, "I'm not there yet. I've seen Jesus, but I'm not there yet." And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we're never going to arrive. We're always being worked on. There's always a new plateau we can have as emotional awareness, physical awareness, but also spiritual. And just to say, like, the word that comes to mind is sanctification, right? Like it's an act, and we have been sanctified by Christ, but we are also being sanctified. And so it's this ongoing process of just, like Peter says, trying to do better.
Mm.
So, just for kicks and giggles, since you said that, so did Paul write Hebrews?
That's a good question.
Because that changes your status, because that would put him at half. So just saying.
Maybe half. I don't know. That's a good theological conversation. That's another podcast, Hector.
I had 2 professors at the same semester who dogmatically believed opposite.
One with the other? That's
and
awesome.
I had a class on Pauline epistles and a class on the New Testament, and they were both teaching these things, and one of them said Paul did and one didn't, and I swapped it on the tests.
Nice.
of who I was doing it for, and I was like, crap. Sorry, go ahead.
Got that one wrong.
Yep.
No, I think along with what you were saying about trying to do better, movie wise, that was a callback
To two, yeah.
to Spider-Man 2 when he says I'll try to do better, when he chastises him for being lazy and not having his priorities straight. And I just love that he was a work in progress then and he's still a work in progress now. And
Easily the most mature of the Spider-Man, the one who has, defeated all these villains. He's got the 3 movies. He's got now the wife and everything. And even at that point, I think he mentions he's in his 40s. Even at that point, he's like trying to do better. So, where he could have pulled the card of like, I'm amazing. I'm doing great. I am the amazing Spider-Man. Now he says, I'm still working on it.
And one of the things for me that has always been a struggle to enjoy Spider-Man, like not in the MCU particularly, but just like in comics and other storytelling mediums, is that he makes a great teenager, but a horrible adult.
Yeah.
And when you've got adult Peter in comics, I'm like, dude, I can't put up with you because you've not grown.
Yeah.
And I feel like a Maguire Spider-Man is something I would get down with watching now. A 45,
Totally.
50-year-old Maguire Spider-Man with back problems trying to still grow. I would love that.
Yeah, so I'm with you with that. I have a hard time reading Spider-Man comics when he's married and a father. Like I like the idea of it, but he hasn't evolved at all despite all the things he's been through, the crazy worlds he's been a part of, the teams he's been a part of. He just doesn't move forward. He kind of is at a standstill while the world moves around him, and this doesn't play into that.
Wait, you fought aliens?
Oh, that's great. Is that a band? You were in a band?
Anyway, let's wrap this up. We got to rate this movie using the bat scale. Chris, you're going to be the highest, I guarantee.
Oh, I mean, probably. I mean, this is easily in the top 3, if not my absolute favorite movie in the MCU. Spider-Man was the 2002 Spider-Man was a huge landmark movie for me. I loved it. I've loved Spider-Man since I was born. So for me, this is a Keaton. I don't like Strange in it. It's got some logistical problems, but all the Spider-Man joy in it, puts it right up there near the top. So I'm all Keaton all day with it.
Fair enough. Hector, what do you think?
Despite your qualms with our rating scale.
I'm definitely going to go with great. It is definitely not flawless just for the Doctor Strange portions alone. Doctor Strange and Ned keep this from being flawless.
You want to go lower, don't you?
No, he wants to change the Batman reference.
Yes.
He wants to say it was a great movie, but wants a different Batman to represent that.
That's you know what? Hector, what would you rate it given your bat scale?
I would say it's a great Bale.
There you go. Ironically, that's what I give it. According to our scale and yours, I think it's good. It's not flawless, everything we've just said, but it is fun as anything. It's got great rewatchability. To me, at the time it came out, it was a reminder that Marvel still had it. And it brings me back to that moment, right? There was some TV shows that sort of missed. There was still, we were early COVID, at least a year in. And it was like, I just need something to hope in again. And this movie is that for me.
I mean, Spider-Man is all hope, so.
Well, I think Marvel is at best when it makes you care.
Mm-hmm.
And when you give us properties we care about, that's great, but we've got to go through the journey. So this was store-bought Endgame because they didn't have to make it. They took somebody else's hard work with the other Spider-Man franchises and microwaved it. Here's a ready-to-serve piece of nostalgia and hope that you can enjoy right now.
Which is incredibly smart, right? Like everything we've talked about, how they took the concept of Endgame and they also said, well, we've got 3 different franchises And here's how we wrap them up. Like, it is a close to Toby's story, kind of. He's there and we want to see him, but it's a close to Andrew's story. It's a close to Holland's story, and it fits within this multiverse. Like, that's really
And
smart.
also leaves
It
all
is.
of them open enough that you could bring any or all of them back and not feel like it's wedged in.
Totally.
I mean, it was just seeing Toby in the suit again, but it was 20 years since the first time we saw him in that suit, and like that's a long road to go through life.
I needed to see him full on in the suit, but honestly, just him like doing that little thing was like enough of like a he's got it on.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It was great. Hector, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Yes,
I had a blast.
it was a pleasure.
Where can people find you online if they're interested in connecting with you and following up?
I'm at Faith and Fandom at all the socials, all spelled out in lowercase. Most of what I do is on our Facebook page. My website is faithandfandom.org. And that's pretty much just a landing page to point you to other places, but it does have 185 geeky devotionals that you can read for free on there. And like, for instance, if you want to read my Spider-Man No Way Home devotional, you can go click Marvel and click, there it is. Or if you want to read, Chris's devotional on Lucifer, you can go to DC and click it, and there it is. So those are all there, as well as links to podcasts. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah, and you can find me. All of the books and stuff are on Amazon. All the podcasts, you can just put Faith and Fandom wherever you podcast, and you'll find it.
It's awesome. We'll throw it all in the show notes. But again, man, thank you so much. It's been a delight.
Thanks. I had a great time with you guys.
An absolute delight. And again, definitely go out and pick up any and all of the Faith and Fandom books. I use them for my personal devotions. I read them for fun. They're so great. And you can get them wherever Amazon is present, which is everywhere.
There you go. You can find us on socials at the Sanctum Pod. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you for all your follows, your snide remarks, and your beautiful, beautiful likes. We cherish them.
Whatever kind of interaction we can get. But listen, we're going to wrap this up, kids. So please remember, in polite society, you don't ask people where their webs come from. You just don't do it. I think that's fine. I think that Affleck is so low. I think that we moved it so low because you're such a hater of the Snyderverse in general.
Yeah, but he's a great Batman in that.
Yes.
This is not the movie we're talking about.
And here on that, though, Pattinson is a fantastic Batman. He just hasn't developed the Bruce Wayne character.
Yes. I also feel like he's kind of in a boring movie, and that also kind of played into it.
It's an okay movie.
It's
not boring.
Okay, see, this is gonna devolve into the discussion of the greatest and worst Batman movies.
Here's the deal: the Batman is just 7 with a cape.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's fair.
So if you enjoy 7, you can't hate on the Batman. God bless you and your family.
Hate on it? No, but I don't know. Put it on to go to sleep? Probably.
You just can't look at Riddler and then hope to go to sleep.
Riddler looks like Clark Duke with some like packing tape.
That's flawless.